All right, welcome everyone to the Hadley Select Board meeting of May 3rd. I'm going to call the meeting to order. And we, as a first order of business, we do have a consent agenda. So on the consent agenda, we have the minutes from March 1st for approval. We have 4 warrants, 44, 44S, 43, and 45. We have approval for a cost estimator proposal for the senior center, which is AM Fogarty, and approval for the cost estimator for the fire substation, which is PM&C Estimating. Let's see, Route 9 widening project 2021. There is a non-participating letter request for water and sewer lines replacement. Clarifier project, approval of the contract documents. And clarifier project, notice of no change orders without select board prior approval. And then the last warrant article for FY 2017, a notice that that will be July 19th, 2017. Okay.
I'll second that, but I would like the letter that we're sending out, or just an explanation regarding the DPW letter that we're sending out.
The Route 9 non-participation letter?
Yes, please.
Okay, so motion made and seconded for discussion. There's a question on the Route 9 non-participation agreement. Marlo or David, you want to speak to that?
Right, so
Just
we went to
clarification.
a stakeholders meeting a week or so ago, where they were talking mainly about bus routes, but they also gave us an update on the Route 9 project in 2021. That's the next improvement for the widening from approximately Middle Street. And it was supposed to go to East Street, but they seem to have extended the project all the way to South Maple Street. Anyways, we were advised at that time that if we wanted to have the same partnership with Mass Highway as we did with the Route 9 widening here, whereby we concurrently with their project, we would be replacing infrastructure, water, sewer, storm, etc., that we should get our letter into Mass DOT requesting this now, sooner rather than later, I think is the words that they said.
They're approaching 25% design or something like that, so we gotta get it in.
Right.
But the takeaway is it turned into, from here to East Street to all the way to South Maple in one project.
Non-participating agreement, does that mean we won't be participating?
No, it means we will be, same as the last project, we'll be going through the project, we will be participating in getting our work done. But non-participating is, the work will be bid separately, like ET&L bid our water work separately, even though it was under Mass DOT's umbrella. So non-participating, I guess that's how that.
Yeah, so it's basically a $10 word, meaning that we're gonna be responsible for only our
Right.
portion of the project, and that we're not gonna be part of the state project. We're not gonna be counted within their financing or their legal purview or anything like that.
Thanks for the clarification.
Okay.
I did have a change also, in the sub-fire station, proposal on the estimator. There was $25,000 allowed in that account. It came in at $20,600, but it has now been also reduced to $17,800.
That's correct. We've renegotiated some of the pricing
Both of them.
on both of them. So one of them is at 1,700 and the other one is at 17,000. And the other one's at 17,800. And somewhere around here I have my notes.
I have mine from my meeting the other night, so.
Okay, so that's for the senior center and the substation.
Right, so
Yeah.
the recommendation of both the committees is to award the bid at the proposed price.
Okay.
Motion is second on the floor, Chair.
Yep. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's it for the consent agenda. We do have a posted public comment period. So is anyone here for public comment? No? Okay. If not, then we have a fair amount of business to get done tonight, and probably be spending most of our time with the Finance Committee. why don't we just, so we can get some folks out of here, the fire substation and the senior center updates. Jane, you want to go with the senior center?
Thank you.
Sure.
We're very pleased with what we're getting so far. Here is our blueprint that we're working on, and these schematics are only shells. There's no design feature in these buildings, please note that. But it's a general sense of how the layout will look. We're meeting with them again next Tuesday, and we'll get fancy on the pictures.
There's 3 different colors here, though, that, because
It's
they've not
designed.
chosen
It's
any
very-
colors,
Yeah.
they decided to show us 3 different colors.
Yeah, that's fine.
So there's nothing, and it's not, it's not pretty yet. It's shapes. Just so you see. it'll be-
Conceptual.
Right. The dining assembly area will be on the right, the entrance, the office is off on that little building on the left, and then the rest of the building.
Am I still correct? This is gonna be on a slab, there is no basement, or
That
is there a
correct.
basement?
It's on the slab.
Okay, very good. I wasn't sure.
Very good.
So next steps, Jane?
Next steps, we meet with the architect again next Tuesday, and we make it pretty on the outside.
Okay.
We talk about colors and materials,
We
right?
talk about colors and materials and, where the windows are, and if we like the doors there or here or whatever
But you
else.
still have to, with all that, I imagine it's the same as what we have to go through, is that you have to go through the historical,
Oh, yes, I'm sure.
so we have to do all that too. We can pick and choose right now, but,
Well, and we're keeping that in mind.
yes.
There's been photogenics in there, and very nice.
And so you'll have, you can have something at town meeting
This
tomorrow
is what
night?
I'm going to have a town meeting on bigger
Okay,
sheets.
so if anybody's at home and you're planning on coming to town meeting, stop by and see the folks from the senior center.
Did you need these back?
There's an awful lot more work done than just
Thank you.
being shown to you. There was
Oh,
obviously
here's one
5
more.
different choices that were shown to us.
Good.
And floor plans and modifications to floor plans and everything, but this is what the committee has brought forward, and that's what we're working on.
Okay, good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to do the fire
I
substation?
could have brought in some schematics, but again, they're in the process of changing also. We didn't have any colored renderings, as Jane did. That's still gonna be worked out for our next meeting. We did talk about flood zoning in the back of the building. That still has to be worked out also. So, I mean, it is moving along, but we're just, it's still in the process of, Mike met with the fire department and put it out to them to see if they had any ideas. There was some change on the inner part of the building itself, where to place doors on the outside so that it'd be accessible from different areas. The vestibule and coming in, having a window there so that people can go up to it too, if they have questions from somebody that's in the dispatch area.
Mhm.
And yet keeping that confined to privacy also. But it's moving along, and we've got another meeting coming up where we'll have a little bit more. We're looking at, probably going before planning board and, conservation commission yet, towards the end of the summer,
Mhm.
so.
Okay. David, anything else we need to know about the fire substation project?
We did receive a letter from the Hadley Historic Commission. It's under review by council. I was thinking that we would have a council's response tonight. I did have a conversation with Joel Bard just a few moments ago. And so we're still studying this issue. And I think that the council's letter is going to indicate, one, that there's very little case law on this issue. It's a contested area of laws without any clear direction, and that there's a state judicial court proceeding on this issue which will clarify it, but it may take a year for that to happen.
Okay.
May take a year for us to have a clarification on it.
For the SJC to make a ruling.
So where does that put the project?
Let me get the letter from Joel Bard to you so that we have all the nuances and to make sure that I've portrayed accurately what he was telling me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we proceed as the voters indicated we should.
Mm-hmm.
And if we run into a roadblock, we run into a roadblock and we deal with it at that time.
Because that's what I was, basically gonna ask you about that on the 21-day appeal.
Right.
So this is what you're looking at. And somehow we needed it in writing.
I guess my only question is, how long has this letter been in existence, and why hasn't the board been made privy to look at it?
You have this letter in front of you.
4/26/17 is what it says on the letter.
That's
In
what-
your computer, I've never seen a hard copy.
I
I don't use a computer.
I think that's, she apologized for the informality of her no. So I think we're seeing a copy of the original here.
You know, usually anything like that ends up in my mailbox right away.
Okay.
And this is the first I'm hearing of it right now.
So it's something that we put on the agenda for tonight so that we would have an opportunity to talk about it. It should be in your package there. If it isn't, I'll make sure that you do have a copy of it.
I didn't see it, and I looked through this, really good this afternoon, so
Mhm.
I don't think it's in there.
Okay, well, it sounds like it was just an oversight then when Jennifer copied the material.
Right, we'll make sure that you have a copy of it.
Okay. All right, so that is the update on the two building projects. We do have some appointments coming in, so we want to start with the Finance Committee? Start, okay. So we have a joint meeting tonight with the Finance Committee, and I believe we were waiting on some conversation to occur with the Finance Committee on Monday night when you guys met. And I think you have an update for us. There are some recommended changes to the budget.
Yes, so we have the one substantive change. I'm gonna have to put my glasses on. There's no change unless I can see it. Is that we have added an additional amount of money to the fire department budget to allow for one extra fireman to be hired.
And that money came from,
Most of it came from OPEB, and a little bit came from bits and pieces that came from various other budgets, and David could elaborate on that exactly.
Right.
I assume that
Sales
as
tax
budgets
revenue?
were tweaked, there was some monies that became available.
Right, so 50,000 was deducted from OPEB
OPEB
and
is the
3,000
majority of it.
came from other sources.
okay, but if any of the other sources was a departmental budget,
No, we increased meals tax by
it
$3,000.
says 3,000 is the meals tax line. So just want to make sure, because if we were impacting any other departmental budget, we don't want them to find out about it on town meeting floor.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we are not.
Okay.
So, as of earlier today, we voted on this now balanced budget, and we're presenting it to you guys, so you should be all set.
So
So
any
hotel
questions?
tax, that's the capital funding mechanism, isn't it?
It's the meals tax. Meals tax last year came in at $315,000.
But
And
capital, the hotel tax is used for.
That's,
It's
just
capital.
goes to
not
general
earmarked,
fund.
just general
General
revenue.
fund.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments for finance?
I know as a board, we voted to retain 75,000 in free cash.
Mhm.
I certainly would rather this board vote to use that money instead of cutting money from OPEB. We've worked too hard the last 4 years, and our liability would be 9 million instead of 6.3. And if we're gonna start reversing the game plan that our financial advisor has given us, it's a sad day in town. You know, we're really working hard at it, and it's going down, and that's keeping our bonding. You know, I know we voted as a board to retain 75,000 in free cash, but I think it would be much more important to protect that OPEB funding.
Except
If I
we don't
can-
spend the OPEB funding till the fall, so we can still prioritize it and utilize the money out of the free cash in the fall while we're still budgeting for it out of a finite system that we have of the OPEB. I completely agree with you that, that we should earmark it from something that we need to take it out of today. But I also think that if there's free cash available in the fall, then that's where we would and completely fund our OPEB money.
I guess the only
we
thing
would.
that scares me, Selectman Devine, is we're hoping free cash really builds to a high figure. And in my anticipation, I don't think it's gonna get that high. You know, there's a lot of things that are happening. We're not gonna get any money back from the budgets like we did before. The school hasn't got any money to give us back, and they even said the other night they're gonna spend every dollar to protect the integrity of their budget.
Well, and I think that's actually why the suggestion was made to be specific and say it was OPEB. And if just to help with the conversation, our treasurer was present at the finance committee meeting. And this was a conversation that took place, and Linda, you know, again, not ideal, to your point, would prefer to fully fund OPEB, but recognizing that OPEB is a somewhat nebulous target, and this was really kind of a program that we agreed to, but it's not a true obligation at this point. And to Jerry's point, because she wouldn't actually be cutting the check into the investment account, so to speak, until the fall. So there's a non-cash impact here. And the thought is that, you know, again, we would still be putting $207,000 into OPEB. So it's not like I agree with you.
We're
If we
not
weren't putting
abandoning it.
We're not
I agree with
abandoning
that
it at all.
100%.
And hopefully, you know, hopefully we'll be able to fund back to the
And
257.
that's the priority of the finance committee, that in the fall, whatever monies become available will backfill OPEB first.
We were concerned about this too. We asked her about it at the meeting the other night, and she answered us satisfactorily.
I wish I could have attended that meeting, but I had 3 meetings that night, and I chose the school committee, so, you know, but I caught the rest of your meeting on TV at home when I got home, and it was a very good meeting. You worked very hard that meeting, what I saw, you know, and, you know.
So we're concerned also about maintaining that level of credit rating that is so beneficial to us.
Sure.
So we're concerned about it too.
And we had to balance that against the safety of the townspeople and buildings, but mostly people. We can't have a fire chief showing up to a fire by himself.
Thank you. You wouldn't want that either.
No, I live in this town. I
Okay,
want-
so any
I'd like to make a
further?
recommendation to support the finance committee's recommendation this evening.
Okay, motion made. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion, or are we ready to,
But I just wanted to make one comment.
Yep.
I don't think that taking $50,000 from the OPEB budget at this point is going to do anything to our credit rating, since we have over $2 million in our stabilization account. That's the big one that counts the most at this point for our double bond rating. So I think $50,000 until we can fund it in the fall, I think is a good idea. Thank you.
okay, motion made and seconded. All in favor of
Aye.
accepting
Aye.
the finance committee budget? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous?
I'm voting no.
Oh, okay.
And the reasoning why I'm not happy with this budget at all. You know, we've worked hard in the last 2 years. We just can't keep taking free cash. I know how hard they work, and I don't consider it a balanced budget. I really don't, you know, and that's the reason why I'm voting no, but at town meeting, I will vote yes, out of necessity to pay our bills.
Okay. And then for what it's worth, I was able to speak with our other select board member, John Wiskevitz isn't able to be with us tonight, but he's aware of the recommendations that you made. And he said that he was, you know, generally in support of that as well. So again, he's not here to vote formally, but he understood what you'd done and was fine with it. Okay. All right, so we've done that. Now, do we have more warrant articles that need to be?
No, you've conducted all of your work on the warrant articles. We have the division of motions, we have CPA recommendations, capital recommendations, finance committee recommendations, select board recommendations. Planning board took their public hearing last night on their 3 articles. You have a town meeting warrant that's ready to rock and roll.
Okay. One thing I wanted to talk about is, you know, in the past, we've kind of started trying to have a few opening comments in advance of this budget discussion to let the town folks know where we're at and what's going on. I'm hoping we do the same thing again this year. And, you know, personally, I think that we need to set the stage for the fall town meeting and just indicate that, you know, again, we're a very active finance committee right now, and we're continuing to work very hard on resolving some of the other needs of the town. And at this point right now, we have to honestly say that the revenues just aren't there. You know, and that, you know, we could be talking about revenue. We could be talking about revenue expansion in the fall. I think it's
Say
appropriate.
it, use the word. Say it.
An override, yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. But, so, yeah. But I know, I think rather than ignoring it, I think it's appropriate for us to just, again, set the stage so that they don't, to Donald's point, this isn't a perfect budget that we would want it to be. And we need to continue to work on those other issues. I mean, the fire department's been very clear that they need 4 people, not 1.
Joyce,
So
you've been in that chair for how long now? 15 years? Have you ever seen a perfect budget? All right, quit planning on having one. It doesn't happen.
No, and I never saw a perfect one for 15 years on the school committee either, so,
Yeah.
Okay.
You know,
things
our
just
neighbor-
are not
excuse me.
perfect.
I didn't
saw,
mean to
that's
interrupt.
all right.
I
You know,
thought you were done.
I've been to enough town meetings where they've spent money, all zero right down in stabilization to nothing. Because that's what they did back then. They didn't believe in bank accounts, and they didn't, you know, they had the money there, they spent it. So the tide has changed, you know, the people in town have changed, and the thinking has changed, and it's all for the better. And I want to thank the finance committee for stepping up this year and making things happen. It's been very appreciative.
yeah, very much. Done?
I just wanted to comment about our neighbor Sunderland. They really did something unique. They passed supposedly a balanced budget, contingent on an override passing. If the override doesn't pass, they're gonna make massive cuts. So that's, we don't even wanna tread on that water, you know, but this is how other towns are reacting to these budgetary woes, you know. Many towns are in much worse shape than we are. We're actually pretty good shape financially compared to most towns, so.
Can you say that again, please, Donald? Is camera
Apparently,
running?
they passed,
No, the part about being in good shape,
I think we are.
I think we are too.
We are too.
Okay, all right, so I just wanted to run that by you, so David, you and I can work on a couple of talking points. Yep.
Yeah, just to say congratulations to everybody. This has been a long road. February 1st, I presented my budget. We've been working very hard to bring it to this point, and you're all volunteers, the Select Board and Finance Committee. You've put in many, many hours in this, and your care and concern for the future of the town and the well-being of the people is evident in the decisions that you've made, so congratulations.
You're here. We'll see what town meeting thinks about all of that.
Please come out.
24 hours. Yeah.
One more comment, Madam Chair.
Yeah, of course.
You know, again, I'm pleased with your work ethics. It's gonna take a Herculean effort in 2019 to solve our problems. But you're all very conscientious. It looks like you really wanna get into this, and that really impresses me. That's the most important thing. We've got a team consensus here now to try to tackle 2019, you know, so that makes me feel really good.
Okay, so I apologize. I'm just realizing that the clock on the wall is
Somebody broke our
stopped
clock.
on
Yeah.
7 o'clock.
There's no budget for you.
So,
And
But my-
it's 7:23.
so it's 7:23, and we did have a 7:15 electricity aggregation public hearing scheduled. I'm not too worried that we've offended anybody in the audience by not holding that, but are we ready to open that?
Absolutely.
Hope nobody's here for it anyway.
Right, were we expecting any company tonight, David?
No, we've given everybody public notice that we're going to have a discussion about the electricity aggregation program that is being proposed for the residents of the town of Hadley. Just to remind everybody that we took a vote back in 2005, I think it was, to enter into an aggregation program whereby the residents of town would benefit on their electricity bill for a reduction by combining all of their purchasing power rather than having single homeowners go out and get whatever market rate they can. Combine all of Hadley residences with residences from other towns and then make a group bid for electricity, which should result in a lower price for households. It's been a long time coming, and we are in a situation where we can authorize the bid for this project, but a public hearing for anybody who might be interested would be, is necessary, and that's what we're doing tonight.
Okay, so does anybody have any oral comments or written comments that they would like to turn over relative to this program?
I guess the only comment I had, I'm a little disappointed with Mr. O'Rourke. When I asked him directly if he had anything to do with working for the COG, and he replied no to me.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's the same gentleman. I wish I could tell you in depth, but I can't by executive session what's going on in the COG with this gentleman. Public record, we already paid him $16,000, and he's asking for a lot more than that, which I can't talk about. But outright he told me no, he had no connection with them, and so I'm a little disappointed in that.
Okay. So at this point then, I think we can close the
I
hearing,
think you
correct?
can.
Okay, so motion
Motion to close the hearing.
the second?
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All in favor of closing the hearing?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and then the next steps, David, so this marches forward from here, right?
This marches forward, and we submit the legal documents to the Department of Public Utilities. Once we get their approval, we go out to bid, and the bid results will be brought back to the select board. You can accept or not accept the bid results.
Right, right.
And it's
Okay.
at that point that we go to the citizens in the town of Hadley and offer this?
Right, it's an opt-out program, so the citizens are automatically enrolled, so they should get an automatic discount if the prices come back. If they don't like it, they will be given a 30-day notice prior to this program being implemented that they can opt out before the first bill comes.
And just
And
for-
then they can opt out at any time without penalty.
And just to reiterate, one of the reasons that we entered into this or tried to do this program was because the citizens could quite potentially save about $100 a year off their electric bill.
Right.
Okay.
And in some ways, it's very similar to the municipal aggregation that we're already doing and have been doing for 10 years. And we save something on the order of $10,000 to $20,000 a year by aggregating our municipal purchasing. So now it's an opportunity to give to the residents something that we've been enjoying in Town Hall for quite some time.
Okay. All right. So we do have another hearing scheduled around on the water and sewer rates for 7:30. We've got a few minutes before that, so I'm just noticing we have the privilege of having Karen Purley here in our audience. Are you here for the electric?
Right, I'm here about, because, there was something that was signed by the select board for the, consultant, Larry Tuttle. And I just wanted to be here to answer any questions about, the contract. I mean, the municipal building committee submitted it to you, I just wanted to be here in case, there
If there are any questions on it?
We worked with the municipal building committee, and met with them a few times about this project. 3 years ago, the town voted to replace the lighting, which involves replacing the electrical work, tube and knob, and the ceiling would need to be replaced. So it was a bigger project from the beginning, and the CPA recommended to the town voted, and we started moving forward with the scope of work and quickly found that the electrical work was gonna be a lot more extensive because of the hallway switch plate also goes to the second floor. And we were not going to do anything in the second floor because it's not open to the public. So in the meantime, the municipal building committee said they would help with the scope of work, and they've gone through a few consultants. So this is a new consultant that they're using, and have put this contract together for him to do the scope of work, so we know exactly how much it's gonna cost. Right now, we have about $83,000 to pay for this project, but we're not sure if that's enough. And the other concern was the timing of this, if we needed to close the library, and when will be the best time to do that. We're trying to go to the town, if our grant comes through by October, to ask for the town to fund the new library. So we would prefer to wait till after that, so there's no confusion of us spending money on the building. It is a town building, it's going to be a town building. So what we're expecting to do with the lighting is nothing library lighting. It is just to have better lighting. The balusters, we can't get some of the parts for it, so it's very dated. So whoever uses the building in 4 or 5 years, if the new library is built, will need this new lighting, and that's why the municipal building committee got involved, because
Supported it, yeah.
just to support this, and to because the maintenance of that building in the future will be under their supervision rather than the library trustees as stewards of the building. So we're working together on it. We need to explore what it's going to cost and the timeline of it all, and then once we have that information, decide, do we need more funding? Does the municipal building committee want to do this project? That type of thing. So it's to find out what it involves.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's in concert with what we heard from the municipal building committee as well.
Right.
So this isn't a surprise. Yeah.
Right, and it's just something that, was allocated 3 years ago, and we've put it on hold, especially with everything else that we've been working on. And now, at some point, it needs to be done. When, I don't know. It's something that we should explore.
Has to be designed anyways.
All right, so,
Motion to enter into the designer services for the electrical service for the Memorial Library.
okay, is there a second?
And I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion on this? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Did you already do 6.1?
David.
The liaisons?
David.
No, we did not.
Okay.
We're probably gonna do that later, but the select board has received the request, and I fully
Okay.
expect that there'll be a change for you.
Okay, all right, that's all I was just gonna
Okay.
say, if that was something that needed to be addressed.
Yeah, I think we got that. so.
Great, all right, thank you, everyone.
All right, thank
See you
you.
tomorrow night.
Thank you, yeah.
Yes, see you tomorrow night. All right, so it's just after 7:30, so we can open the public hearing on this Water and Sewer Commissioners. We'll open the public hearing for water and sewer rates. Water and sewer rates, for those at home, were water rates, rather, were last adjusted in 2007, and sewer rates were last adjusted in 2008. Okay? So, Marlo, David, who wants to?
Yeah, so it's been a long time since we've adjusted those rates. Just a little bit of background. When we adjusted the water rates in 2007, we were doing it in anticipation of the debt service for the new water treatment plant at the Callahan Wells. And the promise of the water commissioners at that time was to hold rates steady for a 3-year period, and then start looking at the rates again. So from FY 2007 to 2010, you kept the rates steady. And then when we looked at the rates again, for whatever reason, the select board did not act. At approximately the same time, the separate sewer commission increased the sewer rates back in 2008, and then we combined water and sewer into a DPW in 2009. And that probably is the reason why we didn't revisit this issue as vigorously as we could. But basically, we're in a situation where costs have risen over the last 10 years. Our revenues have gone up and down based upon water usage and rainfall and weather events. But in general, the water and sewer revenues have been relatively stable. And so we're at a point where we're looking forward to the future of both enterprise funds and thinking about the long-term service solvency of both enterprise funds, and it's time for us to address that by addressing the water and sewer rates. I think you have some recommendations for the board.
Yes, I sent out a package about a week ago, I think. So we reduced mountains and mountains of data and information down at the DPW, down to this 7-page booklet that I handed out. So the trend basically has been balancing the operating budget by using reserve funds at the end of the budget cycle. I think we have somewhere around 223,000 left in sewer reserves and 423 in water reserves. So to take off where David had mentioned, every year it's increasing costs for materials, chemicals, wages, et cetera. So what I concluded when I put the package together was there's definitely a downward trend in our reserves. So we put together different rates here for water and sewer. We reached out to other communities around us. We gave options in water to potentially drop the lower tier and add another tier. My recommendation would be that if we do any sort of increase, that we do it across the board rather than move the tiers around. So we were looking at the baseline, a 6.7% increase for the water rates and a 10% in the sewer rates would be my recommendation. Now, when you say 10%, it sounds like a very large percentage. But if you look at what the increase is per residential home, it's about $40 a year, which would be $10 quarterly when we go to the quarterly billing.
For a home with water and sewer.
Correct.
Great.
Correct.
And
And
for
then the
homes
water
with
would
water
be,
only.
yeah, and the water would be about an $18.61 increase if you went with the 6.7%. So I guess what I'm saying is it would be about a $58 increase per year, but it'd be broken down quarterly for water and sewer if you had both, with this 6.7 and the 10% respectively. I added some others in here, some higher percentages. I think looking at the trend we've been on, I think this would be a real reasonable stopgap to slow down that trend of taking out of reserves. But we definitely would want to revisit our water sewer rates, yearly in our budget cycle. I think it would be good to do that. And again, none of these rates, I didn't couple in any of the capital projects that we have, sitting, or future capital projects, so I think those two rates that I mentioned here would be a good starting point. That would be my recommendation.
And then the meter charges are a separate issue, but they're related to this, and you're recommending that we keep the meter charges the same?
Yes.
And just divide them quarterly when we
Right.
go to
We did a lot of homework when we reached out to other communities to understand what they're charging for meter charges, if they had impact fees in sewer, just the way we do it here, see what other communities do. It's very hard to compare apples to apples because most communities do it all a little differently. It's a mountain of data to try and trudge through and get apples to apples, but we did the best we could with the 3 or 4 communities we reached out to. And as far as the meter charges, I think we're where we should be. I don't see any need in raising them, but we do have to, the board does have to accept if we go to quarterly billing to break that charge that we have now semi-annually to the quarterly billing of that. So I provided a spreadsheet on that too. It just breaks it down to quarterly as opposed to semi-annually.
But taxpayers always look at things the exact same way. So what we asked you to do is to come back with some comparison information so that we could understand that everybody has water. I know they do it differently, but in the communities that are like communities that you were able to provide us with, Sunderland, Hatfield, and Deerfield, Hatfield and Deerfield are higher in their rates at this, even with the increase that we're putting through. And I know that as you talk different systems that are in place, Sunderland uses above water ground, above water aquifer. Okay, so they don't have the below water and the pumping stations that we have to finance ourselves and the filtration systems that we fund ourselves. So in comparison, The average household cost in Hatfield is $375. The new rate anticipated in Hadley is gonna be $344, so it's $30 cheaper. In Deerfield, they're currently paying $390, just a little north of what Hatfield is paying, so we're gonna be about $50 less than the average bill in Deerfield. Sunderland, as I said before, has an above-ground water system that doesn't pump or have a filtration system. So their price is still ballpark, slightly less than what we're anticipating paying here. So in our analysis of other communities, we will be less expensive than like communities, even at the increase that you're putting through. Fair assumption?
Yes.
Okay.
And then to add to that, the communities that we spoke with, that you had mentioned, they're talking increases right now because they're in
Right,
basically the
these are their
same boat that
prevailing
I'm
rates.
describing. So their rates potentially could increase too.
I don't wanna wait another 10 years. I know that we made a commitment to the town when the filtration system went in. You know, nobody wanted perchlorate in town. Joyce and I were on the board when that happened, and we needed a filtration system. The rates went up. But to the best of our ability, or the best of this board's ability, it was kept for 7 years, at least, above water. The last few years, it's been, kind of leaking a little bit, no pun intended. But, so I think that we made the commitment, but I think if my left-hand man was here, he'd say, you can't wait 10 years to adjust your bills. You have to do it on a slow and steady basis so that people can anticipate it, and don't wait 10 years as we did, or 11 years as we did here, in order to go up. So when you talk about going up by 6 and 10%, it sounds astronomical, especially in today's world, but the truth is, if it's gone up 6% in 10 years, that means less than 1% a year. It's a lot more palatable for people to take care of. So I appreciate the analysis. Does Sharon do a lot of this for you? Billy, Sharon?
It was three of us.
Okay.
That kind of put it all together. But yes, the water analysis, Sharon, it's just that I'm running with, so absolutely.
Well, thanks, that helps.
And I think, even though you say 6.7%, it was better to say numbers, because people
Right.
understand numbers better than they do percent. And if they understand it's gonna be broken down into 4 quarters, even that's a little bit easier to swallow than getting hit all at once on one bill with a certain amount, so.
I thought that was important to get those figures.
Mhm.
Because 10% is like, wow, but if you break it down,
Yeah.
for what we're paying now, it's not as big a dollar effect as you think it might be.
Hatfield's a tough town to compare with. They're very small systems, and they're very adequate. I talked to Sean Berry, he's on the COG with me, he's chairman of the finance committee, and he says in the future, they don't even know how they're gonna deal with it, because they haven't been updating either of those systems. And so they're really behind the 8 ball on everything, I don't mind the water rates being at the percentage that you proposed. The 10% that you're putting on the sewer rate, I would like to see that reduced to 5 because of our sewer impact fees. We get an enormous amount of money in this town, and our commercial district is having a tough enough time now. Our big box stores trying to compete with Amazon, and I don't really want to put a heavier burden on them because they pay most of those impact fees through restaurants and everything else, and I think 5% would be adequate, not 10.
I would like to be back after town meeting talking about sewer impact fees, in a lengthy discussion as to how that helps or hurts, what's being done with that now. I know we've received a lot of complaints in recent history. I know, Marlo, it's a bone of contention for your office down there regarding the amount of money that our sewer impact fees are costing to the new businesses that are coming to the town. It seems like $35,000 for sewer impact fee for someone that's adding a bathroom to their current facility. I think we need to look at that again. So
I sort of agree with you, Jerry, but also those sewer impact fees have brought in like $1.5 million.
They have.
That's how we've updated all our sewer lines. We've updated our sewer
Clarifiers.
plant. Without those impact fees, we'd be in the same situation as Hatfield.
I don't want to eliminate them.
David?
Yeah, just for a point of information, the sewer impact fee, you can debate it or not, but it doesn't cover the operational costs. It's
Right.
for capital costs only.
The rates basically cover our operational needs.
I think,
And building reserves, I guess.
I think and of note, several years ago, Hatfield's put sewer lines throughout all the town over there, which we don't have
We
over
don't
here in
have, yeah.
Hadley. So, that's to their benefit over there. Now, what they've done with it since then, you know, they got a grant and stuff to do that, we didn't. So they made out then, but they haven't updated it or kept it up, so.
Well, if it's Jerry's intention to postpone this till after town meeting, I would make a motion to continue this hearing till after town meeting for further discussion, if he wants to get some discussion for impact fees and things of that nature, instead of voting on it tonight.
I'd like this to be able to cover our operational costs, and that's what we're talking about tonight, and I still want an impact fee. I just want it reviewed and kind of some analysis done to try to understand the needs of the sewer department as far as capital plans going forward in the future, what we're anticipating. We got our clarifiers. Our substations have been, our two major substations have been redesigned in the last couple of years. I know we're still gonna have other things coming up. What we're talking about tonight is the operational expense on an annual basis being covered by the ratepayers that we have. And that's all we're doing with these two increases, unless I'm wrong.
Correct.
That can't be less than
And
that.
we're slowing down, taking money from reserves to maintain that operational service.
And
Impact fees is totally separate. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that can only be used for capital and infrastructure upgrade. You can't, the way we're set up, I don't believe we can use impact fees to put towards the operating budget. So the impact fees, I understand what you're saying, but it's a separate issue from what we're talking about here, how we can use them.
Yeah, and I think, Don, I totally get, and
Yeah.
I don't wanna be, you know, and Route 9 is the goose that laid the golden egg for the town of Hadley, and a lot of these commercial enterprises, we do wanna be sensitive, but I think the conversation, to Jerry's point, really should be about those impact fees as opposed to this. So I'm comfortable with the proposal here, it's been a long, long time. So,
I'm just worried about the new scope of Route 9 and 21. They're going all the way to the malls now, and we're gonna be talking, updating sewer, water lines in those areas, and it's gonna be very, very costly for the town.
And not to get too far off base from where we're at, but as far as that meeting that took place, that was my immediate concern. If they're gonna go all the way from here to South Maple, we gotta look at all our water and sewer. We have to design and engineer all of it, find out, you know, where we're at with that infrastructure. They're putting extra wide bike lanes and sidewalks in. Are they gonna cover our existing infrastructure so we can't get to it? So all them things come into play. So David and I had talked that we should be getting Mass DOT back in here and say,
Yeah.
hey, let's tell the town here what you told us.
Right.
Because that's a huge cost,
Yeah.
just to design and figure out what we need to do between now and, between here and there, I should
well, and the
say.
other thing with these, by voting to change these rates tonight, we won't even see the impact of this until next year, right? Won't it be,
Correct.
yeah. So, I mean, delaying it, I mean, that's, we lose a whole nother fiscal year. So, okay, motion?
Motion to
Okay.
accept the fees as presented, across the board, uniform percentages across the board for water and sewer.
And,
Second for discussion.
And just to clarify the motion, so that also includes adjusting the tiers for quarterly billing and adjusting the meter charges for quarterly billing.
Yes.
To Donald's concern, I'm sorry, the second for discussion?
Yep.
To Donald's question to you, saying it's 10%, does 8% cover our cost? If we were to go up 8 this year and 2 next year, does that cover?
Where I came to the figures was, it's estimated that we're gonna be adding adding 123,000 to the, I guess, chargebacks. So when we put this together, we were looking at, if there's gonna be an additional chargeback, we proposed the rates to at least cover that, to stop pulling out of reserves and see where we could end up with the operating budget this year. So,
Our chargeback is going up by 123,000?
61 in, well, it's estimated, 61 in water and 62 in sewer.
We can always decide to hold the rates a year later. But if we don't do it now, we're not gonna get that revenue in, and then we could find ourselves in a slippery
We're
slope.
not doing it, we're not gonna get any revenue for another year.
That's what I mean, so if, I'm saying if we take a further decrease, then it's, again, we're just pushing this out, which is,
I guess that leads me to ask another question now that you opened up the thing about chargebacks. These increases you're talking about, chargebacks are at what percentage?
I don't know the percentage.
Well, that's one thing I'd like to know. I'd like to know how much is coming out of water and sewer and chargebacks that are being used to fed our free cash account so we can pay our operating budget in the future. I think the finance committee needs to know that. I think we need to know how much chargebacks are coming out of every department in this town to feed the free cash account, which we've got to get away from.
I have dollar figures, but I don't have the percentages, not.
I'm sorry, when you're talking, are you talking the year end? When, I just got confused when Donna was talking about free cash. At the end of the year, whatever's not expended in an operating budget moves to free cash.
Except in the enterprise fund.
But in the enterprise funds, no.
In the enterprise fund, money that's left over goes back into the enterprise reserves.
Yeah, okay.
Reserves, yeah.
Right, so is that what you're?
Yeah, the same thing.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that money's protected. It's easy to raise rates on everything, but if we have money that are in these enterprise funds, maybe we shouldn't be raising the rates like we are. I can understand if it's for operational expenses, I don't have a problem with that.
Yes. and
But
that's-
Jerry's thought about talking about impact fees at a later date is very important to me. I think he brought up a very good
Yep.
point.
Yep, we'll make sure that gets on an agenda.
You know,
soon.
because I hate to see us losing businesses on Route 9 because it's gonna be reflective in loss of revenues everywhere. You know, so,
It was my intent as the director going forward to take a look at all the water sewer regulations as a whole. I mean, that's not to tip my hand on maybe a goals and objective for next year, but I think that's something we all need to do, is take a look at the water sewer regulations and get them updated, because there's a lot of language stuff, at least, that needs to be changed. But that may be a good time where we look at everything as a whole, clean sweep, so to speak.
Okay,
So,
all right.
so Jerry's question, do you think we could cut from 10% to 8 or no?
we can, but like I said, that's what I came up with the rate to offset the increase in administrative costs for this year. So in other words, I'm trying to slow down because the reserves are so low now that, once we run out of reserves and we can't balance that operating
But
budget.
very
we can't.
specifically, how much more do you need to go up on the percentage in order to offset the money that we're taking out of reserves now to balance the budget? Is it the 10%? That the number that you need
No,
to?
that's just slowing it down. I think
It's higher, isn't it?
It's a much higher number. In the trend, with the information I was given by the accountant, in that trend, it's a much higher percentage.
Okay.
And
So
I
then- so you
I
can't-
presented a very low portion of that percentage to slow this down so that we can look at them yearly. We should look at them yearly and where we're at, because the capital, the capital plan is a living document. That can change from year to year on us, so we just don't know what can change in that, as far as our needs.
How is the quarterly billing gonna affect you? There's gotta be a cost, you know, there of getting those readings and everything quarterly instead of every 6 months.
We're down to, I should know the number of this, say
88.
80 meters that have not been swapped out. So our reading time is cut down to about a week or less, depending on what we run into. But we've also made a smaller change to help out the collector's office going to quarterly. We have Insight put on Sharon's computer so we can load the gun down there. We can read during the day, she can download the data, and then now she can start running reports to prepare billing and all that. So we've absorbed part of that, we want to absorb part of that, but the quarterly billing on our end, it isn't gonna affect us, because that was the intent of changing these meters out from day one.
Now, the 80 meters that you're referencing to, those are the ones you have to read manually, not electronically?
Correct. Yeah.
So I thought we passed a bylaw that everybody had to be converted over by a certain date.
I don't know, I wasn't.
Do you recall? And I guess my question is, why do we still have these 80 meters out there?
Well,
You still have life to them and they're changing over as
we
they.
had 200 of them when I arrived. And we've sent out numerous letters. It's important to get them changed out. We just have not heard back from 80 or so to swap them out, to go.
I'm pretty sure we took a vote at town meeting, that everybody had to be converted over by a certain date.
But that's an ongoing project for your department,
ongoing
correct?
project.
Yeah, so you've been whittling that down.
Yeah, but if one is broken, you replace it with a meter that they're supposed to have.
Yes.
But if it's a good meter and running, it doesn't get changed.
Well, no, Vince, no, we're changing all the radio read. That was part of the whole program, so that you can do a drive-by and read these things. The older style, you have to walk up to each house and plug it into the box.
Donald, are you even volunteering for a door-to-door campaign?
I don't know, I'm just trying to figure out why they're not being done and, the reasoning behind it. I know that's probably a time element with help from your department too, but are people adversely affected, say they're not changing? And they don't wanna get updated to the electronic ones, and they want them to be done manually because they're still running well?
I don't know the answer to that, why they haven't called. I mean, everyone's received numerous letters to swap their meter out to the.
Because there's a cost to swap. How much does it cost to take an old one out and put a new one in?
Meter cost is right around $115 to $120.
And that is taken up by the homeowner.
No. Oh, that's all part of our program. We're down to 80 meters.
So then why wouldn't they change them if it doesn't cost them anything?
I have no idea. They're not calling.
They're not responding to him.
The most recent letter was a little more aggressive, but we just haven't heard from 80, somewhere around 80 customers. We have not heard from. But we dropped from 200 to 80 in the year's time, which was pretty good, not hearing.
Yeah.
Could we have town council draw up a letter finding out that, stating maybe they have to convert or something?
I don't wanna pay town council to draw up a letter.
Well, I know, but if we can't get these 80 people to adhere to the rules and regulations of the town, we have to do something.
They still have enough time to go after these people, I think.
I think there's other approaches we can take, but this other letter just went out like 2 months ago, so.
They're working on
It's
it.
something we can definitely revisit.
Motion on the floor.
Okay. All right, so motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right, thank you for the work, and please thank your compadres down at DPW who helped, and Sue Grawatsky too.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right, appreciate it.
Chapter 90, were you here for
I'm just
chapter 90
gonna say,
contract?
chapter 90 DOT 10-year contract?
Let's send them home.
Yeah,
Right, get you over with, Marlo, so you can go home.
so you can go home?
You?
What we'd like to do,
Okay.
chapter 90.
So, David, is that you or Marla leading this
Those
discussion?
both of us, I reckon. Well, what we have to do is, we receive Chapter 90 money for roads and bridges from the state every year. That is somewhere in the neighborhood of $360 million. No, thousand.
365.
We've got a problem with the thousands lately.
Yeah, I know.
The millions.
I always have that decimal issue, don't I?
All that cutting you had to do.
Okay, so for this fiscal year, we got $365,000 based upon a $2 million state transportation bond. So we participate in this program on a 10-year basis. Our 10-year contract is almost up, and so now it's time for us to renew. Then we have to renew the contract.
Motion renew.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Good night, Marlo.
Good night, Marlo.
Oh, before you go, quick update on Bay Road. I see it in the package in here.
Yeah,
You say they're starting on May 8th?
Monday.
Yes.
Just so the public knows it's on TV.
Right now, it's targeted to start May 8th.
Don't hold your breath.
I got an email back from Mr. Baroneski, the senior bridge engineer, this afternoon, as a matter of fact, I think I forwarded it, but they're saying the 8th, which is Monday. Depending on how many heavy rains, thunderstorms we get. The only thing that's holding them up at this point, or the only issue they could have, is high water as they start to work on these piers. So
Do you have any idea if the traffic patterns are gonna change when they start?
they're
Or
gonna
it's gonna stay just like
they're
it
gonna
is?
stay just like it is, I believe, but once they switch over to do the other side,
It'll
take
change to
that
the
and
other
flip
side.
it, and we'll be on the other side. Yeah.
And they said 16 weeks max?
Yeah, that's what they originally said, something like that.
Okay, good
Do you
night.
have any idea what side they're starting at?
I would assume the way they
The
have
side,
it
probably the
set up
side
now.
that's buried around
I haven't
right
seen
now.
it,
I'm
You
assuming.
haven't been across Bay Road Bridge?
not lately.
Oh my goodness sakes. I
It's
go
looked the same
every
for the
day.
last 2 years.
Oh, across there, no, I'm saying, no, I've been over that, but I'm saying, you know where you go into the water department?
Yeah.
Are they gonna concentrate in there and park their vehicles on that side or the other side? That's what I'm getting to.
Actually,
Where the turnaround
SPS, the contractor, has reached out to me, and I've authorized them to stage some equipment on that small gravel drive
Mhm.
right there next to the water treatment plant. But they've also asked if they could store some small pieces at our town yard. The gentleman reached out to me today. I'm gonna meet with him tomorrow. He's supposed to come by. I just needed to get an idea how much equipment he has, because I might not be able to put it all there. But most of what they need to do is gonna be staged right there at the bridge. And I also made it clear to them that field is off limits to be
Right.
running around with
Conservation,
equipment. Yes,
general B.
yes.
Mhm.
Down your throat.
Yeah,
So
with
then you
turtles and-
saying the highway garage would be for additional staging of equipment?
Yeah, if they
That if
need
they
to-
only use periodically, they could run it
Well,
back and forth.
barriers, cones, and if they needed to keep a couple loads of stone there and keep an extra backhoe there or something, I mean, I don't have a problem with it if, the board
You
does.
can't harm the endangered species.
Correct.
Good night, Marlo.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Next item we have on the agenda, so I think we just roll through these in order. Select Board liaison appointments. So typically, it's been the pattern of the Select Board that after the election cycle, we go back and we readdress the committee assignments, or the liaison assignments. So right now, I am assigned to General Government, which is basically Town Hall. Joyce is assigned to Public Safety. Jerry has Public Works and the Council on Aging. John has the Library, Park and Rec, and Veterans Affairs, and Donald has the School Department and Hadley Media. So one question is there a desire and a strong desire on anybody's part to change?
I want to stay with Marlo.
And then there was a letter that was submitted by the library, and John's not here tonight, but just concerned that, clearly if anybody's not able to make meetings or respond to the requests that are coming from the departments that we're liaison to, it's probably a good idea not to retain that and have somebody who does have the time or the willingness to pick that up. So I think we do need to make a change, at least with the library. And I don't know.
No, not the library. You don't mean library, do you? Oh, the library.
No,
Yeah,
because, right, because John hasn't been able to attend the trustee
Yeah.
meetings and the like.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I will volunteer to pick that up because I was on the building committee and have some contact with those folks anyway, unless somebody else is dying to do it. That's what I thought. Okay, so I will pick up.
Thank you, Molly.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Molly.
That's what general government is, everything,
Yeah, I
isn't it?
guess so, yeah. But any concerns or requests on the other assignments?
I also do the capital planning committee and municipal buildings committee
That's
as well,
right.
so I have
You-
the four of them.
Yeah, you've got a full plate as well. And Donald, Hadley Media and the school department have regularly scheduled meetings that you're able to go to most of them.
Hadley Media is calming down, so, it's not as many meetings. We're meeting, sometimes every week, but
Mhm.
now it's getting to be once a month, so.
Okay, oh,
That's
that sounds so,
calming down.
yeah, that's getting
But,
better.
Education is education. I just keep that one.
Okay.
I enjoy doing that.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm doing ambulance and fire substation.
Right.
Plus the police and fire.
Yeah, so you want to keep those two,
Yeah.
right? Okay. All right, so we'll just make that one change then, if that's okay with everybody.
That's
What
fine.
does that leave John with? Veterans
He will
Affairs,
have Park
okay.
and Rec and Veterans Affairs.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Motion to make changes.
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we already did the substation. David, Nexamp Solar Development Pilot Agreement.
All right, so we have two articles on the warrant for the solar pilot agreement for installation that Nexamp Incorporated is installing.
Let's be very clear of these properties. There's 3 of them on the table. The 2 that we're speaking of this evening are the Goulet properties next to the Walmart.
The controversial,
of them.
right, the controversial one is the Eversource solar array, which is 1 megawatt, which they are proposing to put in at the intersection of Moody Bridge Road and South Maple Street.
And we're not speaking of that this
And
evening.
we are not speaking of that, nor is there an article on the warrant for that project.
Okay.
Good.
So the 2 projects that we are talking about collectively make 5 megawatts of solar fields on the Goulet property next to the Hampshire Mall, just off of South Maple Street.
So, and it'll be juxtaposed with the bike path? Is
One
that
by
that
the
plot of
bike
land?
path and-
It'll be what?
One is down where they were going to put a super Walmart.
Right, that's what I mean, yeah, so it's gonna be,
That
it's
one.
gonna be situated near the bike path and the, right, near, is that the lot we're
Correct.
talking about?
Way down.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
not gonna be like on South Maple, it's actually
Yeah.
set
Right,
back.
it'll be off South Maple. I mean, people will be able to see it, but it will, anyways, that project seems to be going forward. Massachusetts general law allows for solar developers to approach town for a alternative tax program called a payment in lieu of taxes, or pilot. And we have negotiated 5 of these already with other solar developers, including 2 projects with Nexamp off of Mill Valley Road. We've always approached this from the point of view that both sides can win, that the solar developer has a better handle on their cash management, and the Hadley taxpayers will receive more tax money in the long run than they would under a straightforward taxation program.
So if this is in 61A now, this property is in 61A because it's farmland?
Right.
It's a significantly greater amount of money that we'll be receiving from the pilot than we would be under if it was A&R land, right?
Right. We have some estimates that the 2.6 megawatt parcel would receive about $90,000 more in tax money under a pilot agreement than with straightforward taxation over a
In what
20-year
term?
period. 20-year period.
That's over 20 years.
20 years.
90,000 more.
90,000 more.
Where do I sign?
And then the other one would be a little less than that. It's a smaller project, but somewhere in the neighborhood of $70,000 more in taxation than regular taxation under the pilot agreement. This has to be approved by the selectmen first, by the town meeting next, and then reviewed by Department of Revenue. So
These are the 2 that are on.
these are
Town
2 on
warrant.
town warrant.
Yep.
Right.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Every time it shines, we're making money.
that's right.
Let the sun shine in.
Okay, select board meeting schedule, May through August, so.
First and third Wednesdays. Any holidays?
July
Yeah,
4th,
the July 4th on, not technically on the,
Second week. July 4th, it's not interfering with.
Okay, well, let's start with the month of May, because May actually has 5 Wednesdays. So we're meeting tonight, then that would be the 10th, 17th, 24th, and 31st.
Let's not get carried away.
No, I'm just defining the calendar.
Tell her.
I would hope that we would be meeting at least 3 of those, because the other thing is, if we're serious about thinking about the work that we have to do between now and fall town meeting,
For God's sakes, we haven't had spring town meeting. That's all we talk about here is town meetings.
we do.
Yeah.
But
Right?
there's,
The poor finance committee agree with me here.
We got a long way to go in a short time to get there.
thank you, Finance.
Drinking the Kool-Aid, that's
Drinking the
terrible.
Kool-Aid.
You know, Madam Chair,
Yep.
I'm inclined to agree with you 100%. You know, sometime in the near future, we have to have our town finance officer in. And I want to hear something from a neutral person, looking at it from a different way.
Yep.
A tri-board, maybe our next tri-board meeting, the school is really gearing up for that.
Okay.
So maybe that and Linda and get a real good picture of what we're up against in 219 before we even think about working on it. You know, I'm sure the finance committee wants to know, you know, so.
I know we wanted the municipal buildings committee in for a relatively significant
June,
conversation.
yeah, June 6th or 7th, whatever that date is.
Do we have that plugged in already, so I can?
No, you haven't set your schedule, so. I don't know.
Right. I mean, I have it on my notes to plug it in, but depending on when the schedule's set.
So the first Wednesday in June, if we, I just want to report back to them tentatively that that's going to be an agenda item meeting for June, if that works.
You know, and maybe something else for that agenda is to go in depth in the DOR report, to review it. We really just skimmed over it once and not really got into discussion, anything about it.
We'll have the audit report by then, that needs to
Yeah.
be reviewed. I mean, so I'm hoping that we can we just start with May for now? So, do people want to meet next week?
No, next week.
So that's the 10th.
I have a dentist appointment.
That's a good reason not to be. You won't be able to talk.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
So we've got the 10th, 17th,
do
24th, and
that.
31st. David, do we have requests that are queued up that have been pushed off that need attention next week?
The only thing no, not next week, but we do have a couple of permits that are for a hearing. We've scheduled them for June 6th.
Okay, so what if we do the 17th and the 24th in May?
That's better.
That good? And then the 31st, we're all gonna be marching in the parade, and I'm sure we'll be exhausted, so we could take the 31st off.
I don't think, where's the parade on the 31st?
No, it's on that Monday, right? The
No, it's
29th?
the 28th. We always do it on a Sunday.
On Sunday.
Yeah.
Oh, I just meant that we'll all be together on parade day.
Are you looking at tri-board meetings for those days, the 17th and the 24th?
Well,
We haven't
that's
talked
something we
them
need to
yet.
talk to you guys about too, as to how you want to work with us as we march through the summer projects. I mean, we could also, to Donald's point, we should have formal tri-board meetings to involve the schools. But I think that there may be a fair amount of work that you guys want to engage with us on, and if that's the case, maybe there's a standing agenda item for you guys. I mean, if you want to talk about that and propose.
And I think we should wait for Donald to get back to us. The school has a couple brand-new members. There's a lot of institutional knowledge just left that board. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't thank them at some point in time too. But they're getting their feet wet, and I'm sure they, want a meeting or two to get, a little understanding under their belts before we set up a tri-board with them. But I think it's imperative that we get a tri-board. But maybe the 24th is a better time for that, and let them get a couple meetings in.
Okay, so we'll coordinate that with the schools. And then in the month of June, the dates are the 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th. Are any of those Wednesdays really bad for somebody?
7th what?
And 21st would be the 1st and 3rd.
Right. And again, we may need to tack on, depending on what we have.
Don't get carried away. It's
Well,
summer.
I know, but we'll see who's standing up in front of town meeting in the fall then. So, that's June. And then July,
5th.
we've got the 5th, 12th, 19th, and 26th. Now, I will tell you, I'm on vacation the week of the 19th. I'm not gonna be around. It doesn't-
Neither will I.
Okay, so I think if,
I'm gone on the 5th.
you're gone on the 5th. Okay, so maybe the 12th and the 26th?
Yeah.
Sure.
Is that good? Okay. And then we've got August. So that's the 2nd, the 9th. So we want to do the 1st and the 3rd in August as well?
There's 5
Yeah,
Wednesdays that
let's do
month.
3 of them if you're gonna.
Okay. So
August is bringing us into gear. Should we, where are you at, David, the last week of
Yeah,
August?
so 16th, I hope to be in Sacramento.
okay, so what if we did the 2nd, the 9th, and the 23rd?
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yep.
All right. Okay.
Like 7?
Hmm?
7?
7 o'clock.
Yep.
Tri-birds are usually at 6.
Right, when we figure out when the tri-board is, we'll start that one earlier probably.
David, if you could notify the Municipal Buildings Committee, just send it to David Tudrin for the 7th, and we'll set them up for the
Yep.
joint meeting. Please and thank you.
Yes.
Okay, and then David and I will work on scheduling the other guests that Donald was referring to that we've talked about as well.
And I know that the sub-fire station architects and things are gonna be wanting to come into us too, so
Okay.
they'll wanna be put on the agenda. I'll let you know when.
Okay.
We should do those both in cooperation.
Yeah,
Because
that'd be
Collier
good.
would be,
Collier would
would
be-
be here for both of
yeah.
them, so. As they're working now together, that would be
Mhm.
pretty good.
Okay, so Memorial Day Parade,
Yes, it is.
this is just the consent for,
I think it's more of a informational, don't you?
I said consent next to it, that's what I was looking at. I don't know if we had to actually approve something.
May 28th.
Okay, so the Hadley Legion is cordially inviting everyone to participate in the Memorial Day Parade, which is on Sunday, May 28th at 2 o'clock. Consistent with prior years, the formation time is at 1:15 at the Legion. And John Kirish is a point of contact for this, as well as Tom Stolarski, the Legion itself, Kathy Zaturka, and Jean Baxter. And presumably we'll be doing the cemeteries and all of that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So is everybody able to
I am.
participate? Yeah.
Yeah, 10:45.
You driving, Donald? Did they ask you to drive yet?
Yeah, drive and march same time.
Yeah, I know.
No.
Multitasking.
Yeah, probably. I guess they did drilling in that upper lot, David, for the senior center. And there's more holes up there, and they're cleaning it too now. They're finalizing it.
Mhm.
So, I know you're gonna have continued talks, you and Marlo,
Yep.
on the finishing product,
Yep.
what it's gonna be, okay.
Okay, so we don't need to take any action on that. And by the way, the Finance Committee is always invited to march as well.
Bring candy.
Yes, you want to bring
Hard
candy?
candy.
The only trouble, you have to have shirts with a dollar sign on it so everybody knows what you're there
And a
for.
target in the-
Yeah, and a target on the back.
Who's gonna take the pictures though?
Yeah, I know, that's right, yeah. So, David, is there anything that we didn't touch on in your administrator's report that you feel we need to touch on tonight?
All town meeting all the time.
That's what it's been for the last 2 months. You want this? Is there
Uh,
anything in
well,
there?
Let me just,
Look on yours.
we've gone through all of the major parts here. Town meeting, everybody show up tomorrow, 7 o'clock, Hopkins Academy. We need 100 people. Mother's Club will be there with their earthly delights in the form of baked goods. And a lot of important business to conduct, 25 articles. It should be a good time for all of us.
You got some dedications we need to speak of, I think, as well, when you're done with your talking about. I want to make sure we
Oh,
address
yeah.
the dedications on the yearbook too.
Absolutely. So I think that's it.
I just have one question. I asked Jen this morning and she didn't know. She didn't have an answer for me. A sign appeared up on the fence for a
Yes.
Northampton church.
Yes.
And it's supposed to be all Hadley, I thought, only.
So I don't think that there's an all Hadley clause to.
But I'm saying that could be a can of worms we're opening up. Anybody could come and approach and hang a banner there for any reason.
Mhm.
You know, I think we're letting Northampton in, a church in Northampton. I'm not against churches, but they're from Northampton. So I think that creates a problem.
I agree.
It's a Polish dinner, and I thought it was the Polish dinner for the Most Holy Redeemer.
Which is the picnic in the
But,
summer.
yeah, but this is a Polish dinner for St. Valentine's Church in
Okay.
Northampton.
Yeah, we, the select board delegated the authority
To David.
to David for that, so, but we didn't put any parameters around it. So,
Right.
I mean, I think at this point, the banner's up, I don't know.
You know, I'm not saying to take it down,
Yeah.
but
But
we
going
should have
forward.
some
Yeah.
regulations for the future, I think, to prevent, you know, everybody coming forth and wanna hang banners.
I actually don't recall St. Valentine's approaching me, so I mean, it's worth me giving them a call and saying, you know, it'd be nice
Okay.
if you asked before you plunked your sign on our fence.
Yeah, see if somebody else gave
Mhm.
the nod.
I would like to make a motion that it is dedicated. I don't wanna see that
Mm-hmm.
fence turn into a, you know, a sign
Yeah, just like
for
a-
anybody
for
else.
anybody.
So-
Slapping, yeah,
So
I
I
agree.
would truly like to set the parameter that only be utilized for Hadley functions.
Let's, if you don't mind, let's confer with Joel tomorrow when he comes, because, you know, it just strikes me that there's all sorts of First Amendment issues that we need to pay attention to.
On our property?
I don't,
Well,
I'd rather protect the Hadley taxpayers.
Okay,
You know, just humor me.
yes, sir.
I don't,
as long as it's a conversation with Joel in the parking lot on his way over to town meeting and it's not going ka-ching, we're paying for it anyway.
right,
Sounds good.
right,
Yeah, it's
Okay.
hypothetical.
Yeah,
yeah.
just a hypothetical. Okay, Joyce, you had,
I didn't have any.
oh, I thought you wanted her
You wanted to
to.
do the. who's
I'll
on-
take Glenn Clark.
Okay.
I'll take Ray Shaw,
Okay,
if you want.
Yep.
You've worked with,
Marilyn.
Marilyn for
Yeah.
years, you know her quite well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I wonder if anybody's ever contacted her daughter to be there to accept it?
I don't
I think
know.
Ray will be there and Glenn Clark will be there. but-
Marilyn's daughter?
Yeah,
I think that there was extension made to have that conversation.
I'm not even sure where she lives or anything.
Jen, I think, was talking about it earlier
Yeah.
today.
That she
Okay.
made a contact?
She didn't
That'd
know
be
of whether or
good.
not she'd be there, so, but I think that she did make the contact.
Good, good.
Okay. And just while we're on the subject of schools, Jerry reminded me that we were probably, well, we're not probably, we were remiss the evening after the election because we had two very long-time town volunteers quietly roll off of their elected seats on the Town of Hadley School Committee. So tonight, just want to extend a heartfelt thanks to Roby Grant and Linda Dunleavy for all of their years of service and outstanding service to benefit the Hadley schools and the town of Hadley. So thank you, Roby and Linda, if you're watching.
Here, here.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And I also thank them 2 meetings from the Board of Selectmen and the townspeople.
Great.
So they were recognized at their 2 meetings. The one, they were still there, and the last one on Monday.
Good.
So it's been done.
Donald, we have a warrant article regarding HCOG, and are you able to report back now, or is that still? What are we gonna say on town meeting tomorrow?
Well, I gave David the new information, and we didn't notify the COG in time. We had to notify them by 45 days, which we didn't, and we personally had to notify the executive director within 25 days, which didn't meet the deadline either. So I think all we can do is discuss it like a non-binding referendum, and maybe we could take a vote, and then it's gonna be pushed off to the fall,
Do we want
if the
to,
townspeople wanna do that.
do we even want to do that, or do we just want to pass over it until the fall?
Well, it's up to the board, you know.
I
Do you
we
think
ought to-
anything will be clarified by the fall? I mean, I don't wanna bring a sullied light to this, especially if the changes are gonna be made over there. And I don't want people with a poor taste in their mouth, the way it's kind of it's a rough place to be right now. But that doesn't mean that it's not gonna get hopefully corrected or
Well, I
rectified.
guess the biggest issue, Jerry, is we had a straw vote. I'm not gonna say what it is, but they have one asset left because of executive sessions again. And the straw vote was to sell that asset. And so then there's no other revenues to provide for $600,000 a year that they have to come up with. In 10 years, 5 years, they're relocating the courthouses. In 10 years, they're closing Superior Court, which is gonna leave the building as a museum, which someone has to pay for. And they've been getting $125,000 a year from the state to operate the courthouse, which includes payment for the whole building of electricity, heating, and custodial. And they've blown through that money like Grant took Richmond. They have none of that money left. That's why they're asking CPA funds to upgrade the building.
So here's a question, though. I mean, what I'd like to see happen is, clearly the COG can't continue to function the way it is right now, to the description you just provided. But are we better off having a seat at the table when we try to figure out what the solution should be? So, my druthers is rather than just pulling out, I'd like to be at that table and go back to the legislative team and figure out how to make this work. And making it work may mean merging it with the FERCog or something else.
The other thing, Madam Chair, even if we voted to pull out in the fall town meeting, it takes 1 year before you can get out. And you are allowed to still have a member, and that member can vote, but he cannot vote on the budget.
Okay.
So we'd still have
We'll still be at the table.
representation.
Yeah.
So, it changed in 1999 when they went from a commission to council of government, and their charter is very complicated now, and how funding and how you vote, and it wasn't like when the commission everything was cut and dry. And today it's like anything you do today. It's all legality.
Right.
All right, so we
Okay.
look forward to hearing something.
Okay, anything else this evening? Any other announcements?
Town meeting tomorrow night.
So
Did we
we
talk
haven't
enough about it?
At 7 o'clock. We do need quorum. It's a good time. If you have never been before, show up.
100 people, come on out and have
Yep.
fun.
You don't know what you're missing.
That's the forum, 100 people?
Yep.
They tried to reduce it a couple years ago, but
It does
include
it
us.
didn't go over well.
Yeah.
You get a piece of paper to vote too.
I think I remember that.
We don't want to talk about that anymore. That's
So my
okay.
luck, it'll be
Let
like
it
an
go.
auction, and I'll get.
Yeah. Okay, motion
Every-
to adjourn?
Well, everybody's explained your responsibilities for tomorrow night and what we need done and everything like that, right?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everybody.